Welcome in, everyone. I hope you all had a very nice weekend. I am here to report on what's going on with this DA who thinks that she is above the law. This is Monroe County, New York. I have two previous videos on this, which also includes the full body cam footage. You can click up here to get to that if you'd like to watch that before you watch this update.
The first independent report issued following an investigation into Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Dorley's behavior during a traffic stop in Webster that's now been seen millions of times all around the world.
So how did we get here? For those of you that are new to the case, I'm going to give you a refresher from the media clips here on what exactly went on.
Action to the calls for Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Dorley to step down, coming from the State Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers.
You know what? If you give me a traffic ticket, that's fine. I'm the one who prosecutes it.
This body camera footage released by the town of Webster showing Monroe County Attorney Sandra Dorley's tense interaction with a Webster police officer. This all happened on April 22nd when Dorley refused to pull over when she was caught going 55 in a 35-mile-per-hour zone on Phillips Road.
I am the DA of Monroe County.
I understand
Yes,
that, but that doesn't give you a right
And
to
I
go
will-
55 and a 35. You should know better. That's not a traffic ticket. That's an arrestable offense, Sandra.
Rather than pull over, the DA called the Webster police chief to inform him that she was not a threat and would speak to the officer at her house.
I was on the phone with Dennis Kohlmeyer saying, would you please tell the person who's following me that I'm almost home?
Dorley pleaded guilty for the ticket the next day and released a pre-recorded apology a week later.
In the nearly 2 minutes of pre-recorded address to the community, Dorley explains that the outburst was in relation to stress between working the 3 homicide cases from the previous weekend, including watching video where a Rochester cab driver was executed, and the news that her husband was dealing with a medical concern. She says she fell short of the values she has held throughout her career and is asking for the public's forgiveness.
While I previously apologized to him, I will say it again. I'm sorry. Police already have a tough job, and that day I made this officer's job harder. To the community, I owe you full transparency. Here's what I'm doing to hold myself accountable. First, I already pled guilty to the speeding ticket, and I will willingly pay the fine. Next, I'm referring the entire matter to a district attorney from another county for review and will fully cooperate with that investigation. I'm going to self-report this incident to the grievance committee, and I will cooperate with their investigation. Finally, if one of my assistant district attorneys had acted this way, I would have disciplined them.
I love how she acts like there's nobody that's making her do this. She's offering all this up. No, the governor. The governor wanted an investigation in this.
So I'm disciplining myself. I will take ethics training to remind myself that professionalism matters. I've been humbled by my own stupidity, and I'm fully to blame.
You got to restore that trust. And I don't know if the trust can be restored based upon her conduct in light of her apology. It wasn't the real issue.
This is the full Office of Public Integrity report. Monroe County Office of Public Integrity is an investigative body that has been tasked with the responsibility to conduct internal investigations and audits involving allegations of policy violation against Monroe County contractors, vendors, and employees. The results of those investigations are then forwarded to the property entities, for example, Human Resources, the supervising department head, or law enforcement for disciplinary action by those responsible for such actions. On April 27th, OPI began receiving numerous communications from Monroe County citizens, Monroe County elected officials, and citizens from outside the Rochester community regarding recorded interaction between Webster Police Department officers, supervisors, and Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Dorley on April the 22nd, 2024. The interaction was concerning an attempted traffic stop of DA Dorley in which she was engaging with the officer in an aggressive and abusive manner. Specifically, under Monroe County Charter, OPI is authorized to address concerns received from Monroe County residents regarding their government. OPI began an investigation into this incident after these complaints under this authority and have prepared the attached report detailing our investigative steps, the results, and our recommendations. In addition to the public release of this report on the OPI website, OPI will make available this report to those other government officers, offices, and bodies that have jurisdiction over all or a portion of this matter, including those having the authority to recommend or impose remedial measures and or disciplinary sanctions. They include, but are not limited to, the Monroe County Board of Ethics, the New York State Commission on Prosecutorial Conduct, the Grievance Committee of the 8th Judicial District, and the Monroe County Executive. I will say this, they opened it on the 29th, which seems like they got on top of it. If you think about it, they issued the report on June the 15th. They had to talk to a bunch of different people, so they actually did a pretty speedy job of putting this together, considering it was a government entity. Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Dorley was speeding and failed to stop for a Webster police officer who was attempting to pull her over. Instead of stopping, DA Dorley drove to her home. When speaking with the officer, she was rude and inappropriate. She contacted the chief of the Webster Police Department, Dennis Kohlmeyer, requesting that he speak with the officer. DA Dorley failed to comply with the officer's orders and, when issued a ticket for the speeding, advised that she would be prosecuting it herself. Disposition. OPI found sustained violations of the course of conduct provision of the Monroe County Code of Ethics and the vehicle use policy. Well, it just says that they received numerous communications from citizens and county elected officials regarding body-worn camera video that was released by the Webster, New York Police Department and posted to YouTube. The video, in sum and substance, is BWC footage that depicts an interaction between Webster PD officers, supervisors, and DA Dorley on 4/22 of 2024. Webster PD attempted to stop Dorley for speeding. However, she did not stop and drove home. In the video, DA Dorley engaged the officer in an abusive and aggressive manner in her garage. On 4/28, OPI Director McNair advised OPI staff that an investigation into the incident would begin on 4/29. On 4/29, OPI staff met and discussed the incident and began conducting the investigative tasks. This case was assigned OPI number 24-038 as a working number for the numerous complaints received. This report serves as a narrative for the OPI case numbers, and there's several numbers there. DA Dorley was elected to that position in 2011 and reelected in 2015, 2019, and 2023. In the Monroe County employee roster, she is listed as an elected official and has a hire date of January the 4th of 1992. Okay, side note, it sounds to me like she's just been in her position a little bit too long, and this probably was something that needed to happen a long time ago as far as her being reprimanded. She has a listed home address in Webster, New York. Reporting investigator Stephen Paglow further researched her position and found she is considered a county officer pursuant to New York General Municipal Law, Section 805. This determination was confirmed by outside counsel retained by OPI. RI reviewed 2 videos from the incident, an approximately 26-minute video of Officer Cameron Crisafulli's body-worn camera footage, and approximately 18-minute video of Sgt Kevin Johnson's body-worn camera footage. OPI investigator Melvin reviewed an approximately 52-minute compilation video of all body-worn camera footage of DA Dorley's encounter, which included body-worn camera footage from Officer Crisafulli, I think that's the way I say it, Sgt Johnson, and other officers who were also on scene. All these videos were posted to YouTube. The timestamp on the footage shows the interaction began at approximately 17:44 hours on April the 22nd. In sum and substance, the 26-minute video depicts an interaction between Officer Crisafulli and DA Dorley. Officer Crisafulli indicates that he had tried to stop DA Dorley on Phillips Road for speeding, yet she continued on to her home. DA Dorley refused Officer Crisafulli's numerous requests and is verbally abusive to the officer, telling him to get out of my fucking house. You are being an asshole. Just write me the fucking ticket. DA Dorley can be seen on her cell phone on at least 2 occasions during the video. Those phone calls turn out to be with the Webster County Chief of Police, Dennis Kohlmeyer. The 18-minute video is of Sgt Johnson's interaction with DA Dorley once he arrived on scene. The videos show other officers present and assisting Officer Crisafulli. And of course, they've attached all the video evidence with this report. Okay. OPI also reviewed a statement released by DA Dorley to the News 10 NBC on 4/25/24 in relation to the incident on 4/22. I think I have that full interview up too. If I do, I'll attach it in the comments so you guys can go back and look at it. In sum and substance, DA Dorley accepted responsibility for speeding on Phillips Road, not stopping for the officer and driving home as she was inattentive. She admits she called the Webster police chief, later confirmed to be Chief Kohlmeyer, to inform him that she was not a threat and would speak to the officer at my house down the street. She further claims that she pled guilty to the ticket and sent it to Webster Town Court by 1 p.m. on 4/23. DA Dorley stated that she had no intention of using her position to receive a benefit of any kind. Okay, let me just say something really quick right here. There are more officers shot at police stops than other crimes that occur. And she knows this. She knows what's going on in her county especially. So shame on her for making this officer feel belittled for trying to protect himself. Crazy bitch. Putting him in a position to where he feels scared or he feels anxious about what's going to happen next. How dare her? RI identified Section 4513 of the Monroe County Code of Ethics as a section to be investigated. The section states that every officer or employee should endeavor to pursue a course of conduct which will not raise suspicion among the public that he is likely to be engaged in acts that are in violation of his trust. He should not use or attempt to use his official position to secure unwarranted privileges or exemptions for himself or others. He should not, by his conduct, give reasonable basis for the impression that any person can improperly influence him or unduly enjoy his favor in the performance of his official duties, or that he is affected by the kinships, position, or influence of any other party or person. OPI has also included an investigation of multiple sections of the vehicle use policy, specifically the sections which state department heads are responsible to ensure that employees operate vehicles in a proper, courteous, and safe manner. And yes, I did not know this, but that is a government-owned vehicle that she is driving. Number 2, employees using vehicles are expected to drive in a safe, alert, and courteous manner. Further, under Section B, drivers' operation responsibilities for vehicles include proper and courteous operation of the vehicle. Section 4K states, the employee operating a vehicle is responsible for complying with the vehicle and traffic laws of the state of New York and for satisfying any moving or parking violations. Any tickets or fines incurred will be paid by the vehicle driver when due. Should the employee be charged with any violation of law, the employee shall contact the direct supervisor, head department, and the fleet manager immediately. In such cases, the employee is advised to speak to the county law department before making statements or admissions regarding the occurrence. On April the 29th, RI reviewed Monroe County surveillance from that day, and the camera labeled Watt Street back entrance covers the back door of the DA's office located at 47 Fitzhugh St. Rochester, New York. A black SUV is parked just outside the door. Through the RI's experience, he knows this is DA Dorley's vehicle. The vehicle also matches the same style and color depicted in the body-worn cam footage from 4/22. At approximately 17:26 hours, RI saw a Caucasian female with blonde hair wearing the same clothing observed in Officer Crisafulli's 4/22 body-worn camera footage exit the building and immediately walk to the driver's side of the SUV, where she is obstructed from the view of this camera. She enters the black SUV. For our purposes, that woman is identified as DA Dorley. DA Dorley walks briskly without issue. There is no swaying or using anything for support. At approximately 17:27 hours, DA Dorley backs the SUV from the spot and to the corner of the parking lot. She then turns the vehicle and crosses over the traffic light governing the intersection of the parking lot and South Plymouth Avenue. It appears she waits momentarily for the traffic light to change and then turns south on South Plymouth Ave. OPI investigator, I'm going to say Petroskowski, obtained a copy of the security camera footage from the Monroe County Security Supervisor, Jesse Shaw. RI and Investigative Petrokowski responded to the Monroe County Crime Lab. That building sits directly west of the Watts building. We observed a camera labeled crime or CRIM. It just says CRIM 1038 Garage North. The camera holds the driver's side of the view of the camera, describing in paragraph 8. That camera showed DA Dorley rounded her SUV and immediately entered the driver's seat without swaying or using the vehicle for support. OPI filmed the security footage on a handheld camera and downloaded the clip. I guess the first piece of their investigation was to make sure that she wasn't drinking. They're making a point that she seemed coherent. Investigator Petrowski contacted Webster Town Court. This call was in response to DA Dorley's public statement that she had already paid the traffic ticket. The court staff advised that in sum and substance, traffic tickets which are pled guilty to by mail are taken in, reviewed by a judge, and assessed surcharges and fines. That information is then mailed to the motorist. The court personnel would not release details regarding DA Dooley's ticket at this time. I think one of the news media, though, did report that she paid it. I mean, come on, her job's on the line here. Of course she went in and paid it. She probably did that right away. On April 30th, RI reviewed an event chronology in Webster Police audio communication recording from the Monroe County 911 Center of this incident. The report shows a record of the event created on 4/22. The event is disposed of under Type 47, indicating the event ended with a citation issued. No other remarkable data is on the log. They then reviewed the audio recordings from the 911 center. They are audio communications between the officer conducting the traffic stop and the dispatcher and other Webster officers. The initial broadcast from the officer states, "The vehicle is still not coming to a stop." Okay. He requests, in accordance with standard procedure, that the air be held, meaning that no other radio traffic be commenced on that channel until further notice. So I guess they do that automatically. I didn't know they did that, but that makes a lot of sense because that means, okay, don't go nowhere. I could be in danger here. That's the way I'm taking it. Or this could turn bad. Stay tuned. Other officers respond to the area. Car 953 places himself at a specific address. Moments later, he requests a supervisor respond to his location and then releases the air, meaning the radio traffic can commence on that channel. I guess when he found out he was at her house, everything was cool, then all right. The remainder of the clip is unremarkable and is mainly duplicative of the body camera footage. All right, so then RI spoke to the Monroe County Fleet. It was confirmed that DA Dorley has Monroe County vehicle number 5530, bearing and license plate that was on the vehicle. Okay. Involving the traffic stop with DA Dorley. Oh, okay. I didn't know this. There are no markings on the plate indicating it is a vehicle registered to Monroe County. There is no GPS on the vehicle. Monroe County Fleet Manager states he was not advised of the citation as required by the vehicle use policy. He supplied RI with a copy of the Monroe County Motor Vehicle Rules and Regulations, acknowledgement and authorization forms that she had signed on July the 2nd of 2021. I guess that's when she was given the car. The forms state in sum and substance that she received and read the policy and understands that she must comply with its contents. On 4/30, WHEC TV aired an interview with DA Dorley. In the 10:24 duration clip, DA Dorley discusses the incident. DA Dorley, in sum and substance, denied use of drugs or alcohol, stating she left work and immediately drove home. She admits to seeing the officer turn around, but thought he was on another call. She also admits to calling Chief Kohlmeyer to advise that she was being followed by an officer and she was not a threat. On 5/22, RI and Investigator Petrowski responded to Webster PD to participate in interviews of multiple Webster Police Department personnel. New York State Inspector General's investigators Marty Stanford and Jeff Haber were tasked with conducting an investigation into this matter for the NWSI Committee on Prosecutorial Conduct. Prior conversations with the CPC acting counsel Rachel Brown allowed OPI to observe their interviews and ask follow-up questions while Investigator Haber and Investigator Stanford acts as the main interviewers. Okay, so just so you guys know, there's 3 reports that are going to be put out on this. One must be coming from this NYS committee. And of course, this one that we're looking at here is OPI. I don't know who's doing the other report. We're going to find out soon, though. OPI did not record these interviews at the instance of CPC. Each of these interviews was conducted in a conference room in the administration wing of the police department. The first interview completed was the Webster Chief of Police, Dennis Kohlmeyer. Chief Kohlmeyer, in sum and substance, stated that on 4/22 he was home when he received a call from DA Dorley on his work cell phone. Chief Kohlmeyer was expecting a call from DA Dorley on another matter, so he did not find this unusual. As soon as Chief Kohlmeyer answered the phone, DA Dorley stated something to the effect of, "Tell your fucking officer to stop following me." Chief Kohlmeyer was confused by the request and tried to get more details from DA Dorley, but was unable to understand what was happening. He said he would call to see what was happening and get back to her. As he was hanging up, DA Dorley stated something referring to the officer's lights and sirens on. Chief Kohlmeyer called Captain Mark Reed and advised him that he thought one of their officers was trying to stop DA Dorley. Chief Kohlmeyer was trying to get a ranking officer to the scene. Captain Reed then hung up to call Lieutenant Jeff Webster. DA Dorley again called Chief Kohlmeyer, and it seemed she was now stopped. Chief Kohlmeyer could hear Officer Crisafulli giving DA Dorley commands. Chief Kohlmeyer then heard Officer Crisafulli's voice on the phone and advised him to get a supervisor to the scene. Chief Kohlmeyer also had phone conversations with Captain Reed during this time period, as each was attempting to get ranking supervisors to the scene. A short time later, Chief Kohlmeyer received a third call from DA Dorley. She said, "This is turning into a big deal." Chief Kohlmeyer said he was sure it was and advised her she should have stopped. Chief Kohlmeyer then spoke by phone to Lieutenant Webster, who was on the scene. Lieutenant Webster relayed that the situation had calmed down and DA Dorley showed no signs of intoxication. Okay, this is interesting. Chief Kohlmeyer and Lieutenant Webster agreed that they would not tell Officer Crisafulli how to handle a traffic stop, and whatever discretionary decision he made, they would support. I like that. Lieutenant Webster called Chief Kohlmeyer again after the stop ended, advising him a speeding ticket was issued. Later that evening, Chief Kohlmeyer, Captain Reed, Lieutenant Webster, and Webster Town Attorney Carly Bolanos met and reviewed the body-worn camera footage from the officers. Attorney Bolanos advised Chief Kohlmeyer and Lieutenant Webster to reduce to writing any off-camera conversations with DA Dorley. Okay, so they're saying that everything from here on out needs to be in writing with this woman until we figure all this out, because it's getting thick. Chief Kohlmeyer further stated that he was not surprised to get a call from DA Dorley if she believed that there was an issue, as they've had frank conversations in the past. When asked if this behavior was out of character for DA Dorley, Chief Kohlmeyer said, "The conversation, no. The compliance with the officer, yes." Chief Kohlmeyer was not aware of any previous negative interactions between DA Dorley and the Webster Police Department and was not aware of any previous traffic stops or attempted traffic stops. Chief Kohlmeyer was asked about the end of Officer Crisafulli's body-worn camera where the audio dropped out. I remember that part. They cut the audio out because, and he explains it here, why they did that. Wholly unrelated criminal activity that she suspected may be taking place elsewhere. Chief Kohlmeyer completed a memo that evening memorializing his conversations with DA Dorley, and that memo is here also. Okay. The interviewers then spoke with Captain Mark Reed. Captain Reed stated that in sum and substance, on 4/22, he received a phone call from Chief Kohlmeyer, who advised him that he thought one of their officers was trying to stop DA Dorley. Captain Reed got off the phone with Chief Kohlmeyer and then called the on-duty Sergeant Kevin Johnson and asked if there was a current traffic stop with DA Dorley. Sergeant Johnson said he did not know, and the only issue he was aware of was that Officer Crisafulli was attempting to stop a vehicle that was not complying. Captain Reed asked if Sergeant Johnson knew who the driver was, and Sergeant Johnson said, "No idea." Captain Reed advised Sergeant Johnson that it was probably DA Dorley and ordered him to respond to the scene. Captain Reed was then able to contact Lieutenant Webster and told him to go to the scene as well. Okay, all these freaking police officers are having to stop because of this woman. See, this is another thing that I didn't think about this when I first watched all this. She basically had all these higher up officers involved in this. They had to stop what they were doing and get involved. Captain Reed thought DA Dorley's actions were out of character for her, and he had not heard of nor had any other experiences like this with her. Captain Reed mentioned that it is not uncommon for a motorist to be unhappy when stopped by the police. Captain Reed was asked if the result in this instance, one ticket only, was normal, and he felt it was. Okay. I don't know. I think that if this had been somebody that was in her position, then there would have been more than just one traffic ticket. I mean, the officer had the opportunity. He could have arrested her for the way she was acting, I believe. I think. She was non-compliant with the officer. He could have put handcuffs on her. I do believe. Any of you cops in the chat here, let me know what you guys think about that. Because again, I go back to the whole fact of her going in and out of her home while he's standing in her garage. She totally disrespects him. Not that that should be a reason, but she puts him in harm's place because he doesn't know what's on the other side of her door. There could be a gun right at the entrance of her home, and he, right at the entrance of that door on the inside. He doesn't know. She's so freaking rude. All right. Where to leave off? Captain Reed mentioned that D.A. Dorley and Chief Kohlmeyer had difficult conversations when he took over as chief due to the department's perceived deficiencies in putting cases together to ensure convictions. Captain Reed was not familiar with these conversations with other departments, or if this conversation was due to the fact that D.A. Dorley lived in the town. Captain Reed was asked, based on his review of the situation, was this a pursuit or a motorist failing to comply? And he immediately replied, this was not a pursuit. The interviewers then spoke to Webster PD officer Lindsay Thomas. Officer Thomas stated that in sum and substance, she was working in her capacity as patrol officer on 422. She heard Officer Crisafulli, I hope I'm saying his name right because I'm saying it way too many times. She heard Officer Crisafulli call out with a traffic stop, and the vehicle failed to stop. Officer Thomas headed to the area of the incident to assist. Upon arrival at D.A. Dorley's home, Officer Thomas walked up and immediately recognized the driver in question to be D.A. Dorley. Officer Thomas was previously employed as a Monroe County Sheriff's deputy assigned to the court bureau. She has seen D.A. Dorley numerous times in the courthouse. Officer Thomas described her behavior on 422 as unprofessional and noticed she appeared agitated. That's saying it lightly. Officer Thomas was asked if she had ever seen any other unprofessional behavior by D.A. Dorley, and she said yes. Ooh, here we go. This is the stuff I wanted to hear about. Officer Thomas explained an incident from late 2021 to early 22 range. Officer Thomas was still working in the courthouse, and the courthouse was under COVID protocols. This meant that all the entrants had to sign in and have their temperature taken. On one particular day, Officer Thomas was assigned to execute these protocols at the entrance between the DA's office and the courthouse. D.A. Dorley entered the courthouse with a group of people. Everyone in the group stopped and submitted to the protocols. D.A. Dorley continued onto the elevator, bypassing the requirements. Officer Thomas called to D.A. Dorley and advised her that she needed to complete the entry requirements. D.A. Dorley answered, "No, thank you." D.A. Dorley was advised she needed to comply. D.A. Dorley was agitated and frustrated by this and eventually returned to the desk and signed in. Officer Thomas cannot recall if the temperature portion was completed. Officer Thomas noticed that she did not smell any alcohol on D.A. Dorley's breath on 422 during the traffic stop. See, you guys, that's what I'm saying. This woman is she's a bitch. Okay, let's just put it out there. I mean, come on. And I said it a long time ago when I first saw the body camera footage. I said, this isn't something that she just started doing. This is ongoing behavior. This is something that has just escalated her behavior to become worse. She already thinks that she's above the law. The interviewers then spoke to Sergeant Kevin Johnson. Sergeant Johnson was the patrol supervisor on 422. Sergeant Johnson stated he had heard via radio that Officer Crisafulli was attempting to stop a car, but the vehicle was failing to stop. Moments later, Sergeant Johnson received a phone call from Captain Reed. Captain Reed asked Sergeant Johnson if an officer had stopped D.A. Dorley. Sergeant Johnson said he had no idea. The only thing happening was a vehicle failing to stop. Captain Reed advised him that it was probably D.A. Dorley and ordered him to respond to the scene. Sergeant Johnson responded and had a short conversation with D.A. Dorley, defending his officer and telling her she should have stopped. Sergeant Johnson knew who she was, but had never had any previous interactions with her. He found her behavior odd based upon her position as a DA. Sergeant Johnson was asked if there were any other factors that could have affected her behavior. Sergeant Johnson said he did not know and offered that her eyes looked normal, he did not smell any alcohol in her breath, and she did not look intoxicated. Sergeant Johnson had never had or heard of any encounters with D.A. Dorley and the Webster PD before that. Okay, here we get to it. The interviewers then spoke to Webster Police Officer Cameron Crisafulli. Officer Crisafulli stated that in sum and substance, he was assigned to 953, an East Side Patrol unit, on 422 of 24. The call service was slow, so Crisafulli decided to begin vehicle and traffic enforcement. Officers are encouraged to do other activities when the 911 complaints come in at a lower pace. This can include VT enforcement, special attention checks, or other directed patrols. Officer Crisafulli was driving southbound on Phillips Road. The area had posted speed limits of 35 miles per hour. He observed a black SUV traveling northbound on Phillips Road. that he estimated to be traveling 55 miles per hour. Officer Crisafulli confirmed with radar that the vehicle was traveling 55. Officer Crisafulli activated his emergency lights and turned his vehicle around to travel northbound. He then continued to follow the non-compliant vehicle and utilized his sirens and air horn to alert the driver that he wanted the vehicle to stop. He then used his... Due to radio traffic, there was a delay in his transmission to the dispatcher, informing them of his attempts to traffic stop and the fact that the vehicle was not complying. The vehicle did not increase speed or drive recklessly, and it slowed down once it pulled into the street, where it was confirmed that by OPI that the DA Dorley resides. The driver simply did not stop and pull over. No other VT violations were observed. The vehicle drove directly to DA Dorley's home and pulled into the garage. Officer Crisafulli pulled into the garage and confronted the driver in the garage. He was informed by the driver that she was DA Dorley. Officer Crisafulli knew her name but had never met her. There were no government markings on the license plate. The remainder of the interaction is on the body-worn camera that he activated as he pulled up. Officer Crisafulli stated that he had made 2 or 3 other traffic stops that day, both before and after his encounter with DA Dorley. Each was routine. Officer Crisafulli classified the incident as a refusing to stop, not a vehicle evading him. Okay, so right there's the point. If he'd have said that, then that would have been a higher ticket, right? Or grounds for arrest. Officer Crisafulli stated that during his interaction with DA Dorley, he got as close as approximately 1 foot from her. He did not smell any alcoholic beverage on her breath, her eyes were not glassy, and she was not slurring her words. It was of his opinion that she was not under the influence of any drugs or alcohol. The officer was asked about his statement in the body-worn camera footage where he told DA Dorley this was an arrestable offense. Officer stated that at that time he meant unlawfully fleeing a police officer, but when he reviewed the section of penal law, the elements of that crime were not met. Officer still felt the section of New York State vehicle and traffic failure to yield to an emergency and or a New York State penal law obstructing governmental administration would apply, but in his discretion chose not to charge either offense. By that time, the situation had de-escalated, and he was able to issue the ticket for which he attempted to stop DA Dorley in the first place. He issued her a ticket for a violation of speeding, 55, and a 35. Officer Crisafulli was asked if he had spoken to DA Dorley since this incident, and he stated that she had sent him 2 text messages to his personal cell phone. Officer then showed the interviewers 2 received text messages, one from 427 and one from 428. Both were from a phone number confirmed to be used by DA Dorley. In sum and substance, in both messages, DA Dorley offers her apologies, and on 427 asked to meet up with him. So she did tell the truth about that. RI reviewed the transmission times and the distance involved in this incident after hearing the details from Officer Crisafulli. At approximately 17:44 hours, he first makes a radio transmission. He is attempting to stop a car that is not stopping. Approximately 20 seconds later, he identifies himself. He transmits that he is at an address that is DA Dorley's home. See, what I want to know, though, is from the time that he put on his lights until the time that she actually stopped, how long was that? I mean, from the time that he put on his lights, so when they got to her house, basically, because she had to stop, how long was that? Did they say it in here? At 17:48, he releases the air back to the dispatcher. He stated in his interview that he first observed and speed estimated DA Dorley on Phillips Road. He was southbound, activated his emergency lights, and turned around. Radio traffic delayed his first transmission, which he reported as fallen leaf and briar. Approximately 1.1 miles. Okay. Still, though, when you're trying to pull somebody over, 1.1 miles is a long damn time. That's a long ways. On 5/29, Investigator Pachowski contacted Webster Town Court. They advised her that Town of Ontario Justice William Benedict II adjudicated the ticket in place of elected Webster judge, who had recused themselves. After reviewing her plea of guilty to the ticket from 422, her imposed fine of $183, there was a $90 fine and a $93 surcharge, which came to $183. Due to court rules and regulations, DA Dorley has not been able to pay the ticket yet. Oh, though she has tried. Webster Courts needs to complete some administrative tasks before Judge Bennett can accept a payment as a Webster judge. Okay. On May the 30th, interviewers returned to the Webster PD and spoke to Lieutenant Jeff Webster. Lieutenant Webster stated in sum and substance he responded to the scene from his home after being contacted by Captain Reed and being briefed on what had occurred. So see, this guy had to come in on his off time. Ugh! On his way there, he was trying to wrap his head around why D.A. Dorley wouldn't stop. Lieutenant Webster, who described a friendly, not friends, relationship with D.A. Dorley and her husband through work interactions, professional gatherings, and passing each other at a local golf club, felt this display of behavior was out of character for D.A. Dorley. Upon arrival, he entered the garage and listened to Sgt Johnson speak to D.A. Dorley. I wonder, he must be the one that has the black beard in the body-worn cam footage. Sgt Johnson left the garage and Lieutenant Webster had a conversation with D.A. Dorley. It should be noted that Lieutenant Webster was on a training day and coming from home, so he did not have a body-worn camera on. Okay. Oh, I never thought about that. They can't take their body-worn cameras home. I never thought about that. Makes sense. Lieutenant Webster asked D.A. Dorley something to the effect of, "Why are we here?" Lieutenant Webster had substantially the same conversation with D.A. Dorley that other officers did, with her stating she chose not to stop on Phillips Road and the officer stating that is not her choice. Lieutenant Webster made it clear to D.A. Dorley that the ranking officers involved in this would not be instructing officers to turn off body-worn cameras or telling Officer Crisafulli what decisions to make regarding his discretion to write or arrest based on the stop. Oh, so he's the one that went in there and said, look, lady, I kind of want to go back and look at that video now, because that's the point where she found out that, yeah, your phone call to the captain didn't do any good. Throughout his conversations with D.A. Dorley, Lieutenant Webster continued to try and deduce why this was occurring. He made observations to determine if intoxication was a factor, but did not detect any smell of alcohol. After Officer Crisafulli issued the ticket and left, Lieutenant Webster believed Sgt Johnson was the only person left at the scene, and he was in the street. Lieutenant Webster walked back up the driveway and spoke to D.A. Dorley and her husband. Again, he wasn't wearing a body cam, so we're not going to see that. He stood in the doorway area as they sat in the house. Lieutenant Webster reiterated that this did not have to go this way. D.A. Dorley claimed that she had a bad day after reviewing weekend homicides and a friend's recent sudden death. Somewhere in this conversation, D.A. Dorley brought up a separate recent issue involving the Webster PD and another traffic stop. D.A. Dorley expressed her disappointment over how the situation was handled by the Webster Police Department. Lieutenant Webster told her he understood, but much like the present incident, the Webster PD cannot show favoritism. The RI asked Lieutenant Webster what he believed D.A. Dorley's goal was in bringing up the situation and asked if he thought she was lobbying for the officer or complaining about his treatment. Webster believed she was trying to change the subject or put the focus on someone else, the same way she brought up potential wholly unrelated criminal activities that she suspected may be taking place elsewhere with responding officers. At the end of the incident, Lieutenant Webster's opinion was that the stress of her day just got to D.A. Dorley. When asked about any statements he made regarding a possible arrest and what that could be for, Lieutenant Webster said that at the time he was wondering about unlawfully fleeing a police officer, but after hearing all the facts, he determined the elements of the crime were not met. Lieutenant Webster was unaware of all the details of D.A. Dorley's behavior after she stopped until he reviewed the body-worn camera footage with Chief Coene and Captain Reed later that evening. Lieutenant Webster did not believe that the elements of obstructing governmental administration under New York state penal law was met, but the officer, using his discretion, chose not to charge DA with that anyway. Okay. Lieutenant Webster completed a memo that evening memorializing his off-camera conversations with DA Dorley. The interviewers then spoke to Officer Corey Coene. Officer Coene stated that in sum and substance, he was working that day when he heard Officer Crisafulli attempt to stop a car that was not complying. He responded to the call and arrived at D.A. Dorley's home. As he walked up the driveway, he could hear D.A. Dorley arguing her side as to why she failed to stop. Officer Coene did not know who she was and only learned as he walked up the driveway from Officer Thompson that the subject of the stop was the DA. Officer Coene thought D.A. Dorley was being pretentious and was power tripping. Officer Coene waited with DA Dorley while Officer Crisafulli stepped out at one point. Officer Coene asked her why she did not stop, and she stated she did not know she was the target. Officer Coene pointed out that any motorist is required to pull over for an emergency vehicle with activated lights either way. Officer Cohen's observation of DA Dorley did not lead him to believe that she was under the influence of anything. So then on July the 8th, Investigator Petrowski contacted the Webster Town Court, and the Webster court personnel confirmed DA Dorley paid her traffic ticket in full on June the 28th of 2024. And again, I think she was trying to get that done as soon as she possibly could. She was probably calling him every day trying to get that thing done. She knew her job was on the line. Here's the summary. While public opinion regarding this incident has spanned a far and passionate spectrum, OPI has a duty to focus only on the facts relating to potential violations of Monroe County policy and or the codes of ethics. After a review of the Monroe County policies and code of ethics, OPI identified the following sections to investigate for possible violations by DA Dorley. The Monroe County Motor Vehicles Rules and Regulations for County Vehicles. Motor vehicle use. Department heads responsible to ensure that employees operate the vehicles in proper, courteous, safe manner. Employees using vehicles are expected to drive in a safe, alert, and courteous manner. B1, proper and courteous operation of the vehicle. And they bring up this B4 again, where they're responsible for complying with the vehicle and traffic laws of the state of New York and for satisfying any moving or parking violations. Any tickets or fines incurred will be paid by the vehicle driver when due. Should the employee be charged with any violation of law, the employee shall contact the direct supervisor or department head and the fleet manager immediately. In such cases, the employee is advised to speak with the county law department before making statements or admissions regarding the occurrence. And the Monroe County Code of Ethics, every officer or employee should endeavor to pursue a course of conduct which will not raise suspicion among the public that he is likely to be engaged in acts that are in violation of his trust. He should not use or attempt to use his official position to secure unwarranted privileges or exemptions for himself or others. He should not by his conduct give reasonable basis for the impression that any person can improperly influence him or unduly enjoy his favor in the performance of his official duties, or that he is affected by the kinship, position, or influence of any party or person. And the findings are, okay, so she's violated A1, A2, and B1. They're all founded, which are all those that I just read. The act of driving 20 miles per hour over the posted speed limit, a fact not disputed by DA Dorley, precludes her from driving her county vehicle safely or properly. State speed limits are different in different areas for many reasons, with safety being one of them. DA Dorley's refusal to comply with the lawful and common requirement for a driver to pull their vehicle to the side of the road when a police officer activates their emergency lights is a violation of the proper and courteous sections of the regulations. Her behavior with Officer Crisafulli violates the courtesy manner required of the regulation. Damn right it does. DA Dorley did not comply with the vehicle or traffic laws of the state of New York. She did not contact the fleet manager immediately or at all. Oh, that's interesting. She paid her fine to the Webster Town Court on June the 28th. She did not contact her direct supervisor or department head. However, it says in here, this becomes a nuanced portion of the policy since DA Dorley is an elected official. In essence, she does not have direct supervisor, and she is the department head. So while the policy exists, it becomes a valid question as to who would fill this position or this role in this instance. The fact that DA Dorley did not advise the fleet manager is an omission of duty by her, as that role is clearly defined by another individual. While employees are advised to speak to the law department there, it does not have to be done. Violation under Monroe County Code of Ethics is founded. There is no lens to view the body-worn cam footage through that defends DA Dorley's behavior on April the 22nd. From her response of, I really don't care, to Officer Crisafulli telling her she was traveling 55 miles per hour in a 35 zone, to refusing multiple requests by the officer to stand still or in a certain place, to the statements of, get out of my fucking house, you're being an asshole, just write me the fucking ticket, all while making it clear that she is the DA, are behaviors that are rude at best and more accurately described as abusive. Repeatedly calling the Webster chief of police the officer's boss cannot be viewed as anything but an attempt to secure unwarranted privileges or exemptions for herself. I say for herself, this is for himself. DA Doyley's request of Chief Colmeyer, just tell him to leave me alone, is clear evidence of intent to secure unwarranted privileges or exemptions for herself. In her WHEC interview, DA Doyley paints her call to the chief as just an attempt to make sure officers knew she wasn't a threat. There are, however, stark differences between her interview account, what Chief Colmeyer reports, and what the body-worn cam footage depicts. Even if that were her intent, or her words gave the impression that was her intent, that is not her requirement at that moment as a New York State motorist. Her lawful requirement is to pull to the side of the road, not attempt to explain her own decisions. Additionally, Doyley's phone calls to Chief Colmeyer indicate that she knew her actions would be setting off alarms for the officers and potentially creating a hazardous situation. Thank you. That's what I'm saying. Repeated statements by Doyley claiming she would be prosecuting myself would raise suspicion among the public that he is likely to be engaged in acts that are in violation of his trust. Lawyer and judge recusals from any type of court case are common when there is any relationship that may even give the appearance of bias, favor, or impropriety. This is done to give confidence to the public that laws are being adjudicated fairly and evenly. A suggestion that someone will be able to prosecute themselves is contrary to publicly held perceptions of confidence and fairness in the legal process. As the top law enforcement officer in the county, DA Doyley's refusal to submit to lawful commands and determination to make her own decision to drive home rather than stop places serious stress on any law enforcement officer. That's what I was saying. Thank you. This type of display could encourage the public to take the same liberties, thereby endangering other law enforcement officers. Okay, here are their recommendations. The founded violations of the vehicle use policy should be handled in accordance with that policy and in manner consistent with other comparable violations of the policy. Monroe County should cooperate with other state agencies who have jurisdiction and are investigating this matter, which include but are not limited to the Monroe County Board of Ethics, New York State Commission on Prosecutorial Conduct, New York State Attorney Grievance Committee, and the Monroe County Executive. OPI has referred the founded violations of the Code of Ethics to the Monroe County Board of Ethics. All right, I want to go to their website really quick. Okay, hang on. That's it. It doesn't say anything else. So, that sucks. I think I have all the body cam footage that's out there. So that's the first report of many.
During our interview, I asked her directly why she called the police chief instead of just pulling over. Here's what she said.
You were trying to get out of the ticket. At that point, I wanted the officer to know that I was not a threat. And I'm sorry for that.
Why not just pull over and tell him you're not a threat?
I don't have a good answer for that. I made a mistake.
And so what happens from here?
So again, we're an investigative body that we have no, disciplinary function in this office. So we complete our findings and we turn them over to the proper entities.
The other ethics agencies don't have the ability to discipline either. And when it comes to the violation of the take-home car rules,
this is a very unique situation. In the policy, it states that the department head will handle any violations of the vehicle use policy. In this case, the district attorney is the department head.
This report is the first of 3 or 4 to come out as different local and state agencies are investigating.
Rude and abusive, just some of the words used to describe Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Doyley in a new report.
Monroe County Office of Integrity releasing its investigation into this April 22nd traffic stop involving District Attorney Sandra Doyley.
I am the DA in Monroe County.
I understand that, but that doesn't give you a right to go 55 and a 35. And you even admitted to me that you went 50. I understand that, ma'am. I understand that.
While the investigation included several interviews with law enforcement and Webster Town officials, Doyley was not interviewed.
We did not feel it was necessary, to speak to District Attorney Doyley, as everything that we needed was captured on video.
OPI Director Jansen McNair says in addition to violations of county vehicle use policy, Doyley violated the county's code of ethics when she made statements like this.
You know what? If you give me a traffic ticket, that's fine. I'm the one who prosecutes it.
There were statements that the district attorney made that would lead someone to believe that she was going to be using her position to dismiss the ticket that she was getting.
McNair says it's vital county leaders set an example for the communities they serve.
We have reached out to the district attorney's office, which declined to comment.
I was looking through all the media coverage because that happened actually, that report has been out for several weeks now. But there's no updates. Nothing's been shown. I think they're just waiting on these other reports to come out, and then the news will do some more updating on it. So I don't think this is our last video on this case. And I think at this point, I'm going to go ahead and create a playlist for DA Dorley. And that way it'll be easy for you guys to find all this stuff. In the meantime, feel free to click on one of these other 2 videos that I've previously done on this case if you have not already watched them. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please do not forget to like and subscribe on your way out, and feel free to leave a comment. Have a blessed day.